The message arrived on a Tuesday morning at exactly 11:47 GMT. Every radio telescope, every satellite dish, and every communication device on Earth received the same transmission simultaneously. The signal was so powerful it overrode television broadcasts, interrupted phone calls, and made computers everywhere display the same text in perfect translation for each language. Primitive species detected. Compliance protocols initiated. Submit or face extinction. Dr. Sarah Chun was working late in her quantum physics lab at Beijing University when the message came through her research computer. At first, she thought it was some kind of elaborate prank. The words were too simple, too direct. Surely first contact with alien life would be more scientific. But as emergency broadcasts began flooding the airwaves, Sarah realized this was no joke. World leaders appeared on television with pale faces and shaking voices. The United Nations called an emergency session. Military bases around the world went to high alert. The aliens called themselves the Hegemony Council. They had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, they claimed. Earth was just another young world that needed to learn its place. Humanity could either serve them willingly or be wiped out completely. This is how it always goes, the second message explained. New species think they are special. They are not. You will provide workers for our industries and soldiers for our armies. Resistance is pointless. We have destroyed civilizations older and stronger than yours. President Martinez addressed the world that evening. We will not kneel to these invaders, she declared. Humanity has faced extinction before and survived. We will find a way. But the aliens were not impressed by human defiance. 3 days later, their response arrived in Earth's orbit. Commander Marcus Webb watched from the International Space Station as the alien ship emerged from what looked like empty space. It was enormous, a dark cylinder covered in strange symbols that seemed to move and shift when he looked at them. The ship was easily 10 times larger than any human vessel ever built. My God, whispered Dr. Petrov, the Russian scientist floating beside him. How did something that size get so close without our detecting it? The answer came quickly. The alien ship, the aliens called it a pest control unit, began broadcasting another message. Final warning. Submit now or face consequences. You have 6 hours. World leaders tried desperately to establish real communication. They sent mathematical sequences, images of human art and culture, even offers to negotiate terms of surrender. The aliens ignored everything. When the 6 hours ended, the ship opened fire. Sarah Chun was visiting her parents in Beijing when the first beam hit the city. She was having dinner with her mother and father, talking about her research, when the sky suddenly turned white. The light was so bright, it seemed to come from everywhere at once. When the light faded, half of Beijing was simply gone. Not destroyed, not burned, just gone. Where buildings and streets had been, there was only a perfectly smooth crater filled with some kind of glowing dust. Sarah! Her mother screamed, grabbing her arm. We have to run. But there was nowhere to run. The alien ship fired again, and this time Sarah watched in horror as the beam swept across the city like a giant eraser. Everything it touched vanished. Cars, buildings, people, all turned to glowing dust in seconds. The same thing was happening around the world. London, New York, Moscow, Tokyo, every major city became a target. The alien weapon didn't make explosions or leave ruins. It simply deleted whatever it hid from existence. President Martinez tried to coordinate a military response from an underground bunker in Colorado. Every weapon humanity possessed was fired at the alien ship. Nuclear missiles, laser satellites, electromagnetic pulse devices, nothing worked. The ship had some kind of energy barrier that made everything bounce off harmlessly. Sir, reported General Hayes. Our best estimates say the shield can absorb energy equivalent to 1,000 nuclear bombs without even flickering. Then we hit it with 1,001. Martinez replied grimly. But even when they managed to coordinate a massive strike with weapons from every nation on Earth, the result was the same. The alien ship continued its methodical destruction, as if nothing had happened. Commander, Webb tried to ram the space station into the alien vessel in a desperate suicide attack. The station broke apart like an egg hitting a brick wall. Webb barely escaped an emergency pod, watching helplessly as the debris bounced off the alien shields. After 7 days of horror, the alien ship finally stopped firing. Over 2 billion people were dead. Every major government was gone. The world's military forces were scattered and broken. The final message from the aliens was brief. Resistance has ended. Compliance monitoring stations will be established. Any further aggressive actions will result in complete extinction. You have been warned. Sarah Chun found herself in a refugee camp in rural China, surrounded by survivors who stared at the sky with empty eyes. Her parents were dead. Her research lab was dust. Everything she had ever known was gone. But as she sat in the dirt, watching alien ships land to begin setting up their monitoring stations, Sarah felt something unexpected growing inside her chest. Not despair, not grief, anger. Cold, calculating anger. The aliens had made a mistake. They thought humanity would break like glass when hit hard enough. They thought terror would make humans obedient. They were wrong. Sarah looked around at the other survivors. Scientists, soldiers, farmers, teachers, all of them with the same look in their eyes. The same quiet fury. The same unwillingness to accept defeat. The aliens had won the first battle. They had proven their strength and shown their contempt for human life. But they had also revealed something important. They thought the war was over. Sarah Chun smiled for the first time since Beijing died. She began making plans. 6 months after the alien attack, Earth looked like a broken planet. The great cities were empty craters. The proud governments had collapsed. Alien monitoring stations dotted the landscape like metal tumors, watching everything with cold electronic eyes. To the Hegemony Council, Earth's story was finished. Their reports described another successful pacification. The primitive humans had been reduced from 8 billion to just over 5 billion in a matter of weeks. The survivors were scattered, leaderless, and completely broken, but the aliens had never studied human history very carefully. If they had, they might have learned about the French Resistance, the Warsaw Ghetto, the Underground Railroad, and 1,000 other examples of humans who refused to stay down. Sarah Chun had found her way to an abandoned mining facility deep in the mountains of Tibet. The complex had been carved into solid rock decades earlier, designed to survive nuclear war. The aliens had missed it completely when they destroyed the surface world. She was not alone. Somehow, survivors had been finding these hidden places. Scientists who had lost their laboratories. Soldiers who had watched their armies die. Engineers who had seen their cities turn to dust. They came together in caves and bunkers and forgotten military bases, all carrying the same desperate hope. "We cannot fight them directly," said Dr. James Wright, a former NASA engineer who now lived in what used to be a missile silo in Montana. He was speaking to a video conference that connected dozens of hidden settlements around the world. Their technology is thousands of years ahead of ours. Then we don't fight them directly, replied Commander Marcus Webb from his hideout in the ruins of Norad. Webb had survived the destruction of the space station and made his way back to Earth. We fight them the way humans have always fought stronger enemies. Sarah leaned forward in her makeshift laboratory. Around her, salvaged equipment hummed quietly. Marcus is right, but we need to understand what we're really fighting. I've been studying the recordings of their weapons, the way their ships move. Their technology operates on completely different principles than ours. The aliens used what Sarah called brute force physics. They had unlimited energy and used it to control gravity, manipulate matter, and bend space itself. Their ships could appear and disappear at will. Their weapons could erase matter from existence. They had perfected the use of raw power over millions of years. But there was something interesting in the way they fought. Their attacks were always predictable. Their patterns never changed. Their technology, for all its power, seemed to follow rigid rules. They're like a chess computer, Sarah explained to her small team of researchers. Incredibly powerful, but they can only think in straight lines. They've been doing the same things for so long they've forgotten how to adapt. Dr. Maria Santos, a quantum physicist who had escaped the destruction of São Paulo, nodded slowly. You're talking about cognitive rigidity. When a species becomes too successful, too set in their ways, they lose the ability to handle unexpected challenges. Exactly, Sarah said. And humans are very good at being unexpected. The hidden settlements began to network together. Information flowed through buried cables and hidden radio stations. Slowly, carefully, they began to rebuild. Not the old world, that was gone forever. Instead, they built something new, something the aliens would never recognize as dangerous. Commander Webb established training camps in abandoned, underground facilities. Former soldiers taught farmers how to use weapons. Scientists learned guerrilla tactics. Children who had lost their parents learned to hate efficiently and quietly. But this was not just about revenge. Sarah Chun had made a discovery that changed everything. While examining wreckage from the alien monitoring stations, she found something impossible. The alien technology was incredibly advanced, yes, but it was also incredibly predictable. Every component followed logical patterns. Every system had clear inputs and expected outputs. Human technology was different. Born from chaos, built through trial and error, full of improvised solutions and unexpected innovations. Where alien minds saw disorder, human minds saw possibility. Look at this, Sarah told her team, pointing to a comparison chart on her computer screen. Alien computers are perfect. They never make mistakes, never have random errors, never produce unexpected results. But human computers are full of bugs and glitches and strange behaviors. How is that an advantage? Asked Dr. Wright from Montana. Because their defensive systems are designed to protect against logical, predictable attacks. They've never encountered technology that operates on controlled chaos. Sarah's eyes were bright with excitement. We can't overpower them, but we might be able to confuse them. The work began in secret. Every hidden facility became a research laboratory. Scientists worked with scavenged alien technology and human innovation. They weren't trying to copy alien designs. That was impossible with human manufacturing capabilities. Instead, they were creating something entirely new. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a neuroscientist who had been studying human brain patterns before the invasion, made a startling discovery. Human consciousness operates on quantum uncertainty, she explained in a late-night video call that connected research teams around the world. Our thoughts are literally unpredictable at the quantum level. Alien minds are different. They're telepathic, ordered, logical. They think in patterns we can map and predict. What are you saying? Asked Commander Webb. I'm saying that human randomness might be weaponizable. If we can build technology that operates like human consciousness, chaotic, unpredictable, quantum, their defenses won't know how to respond. The aliens, meanwhile, considered Earth completely pacified. Their monitoring stations reported that the surviving humans had settled into primitive agricultural communities. No advanced technology was detected. No organized resistance movements were identified. The few remaining military units had been disbanded. Once every few months, hegemony harvester ships would visit Earth to collect resources and take human workers for their labor camps. The humans never resisted. They seemed broken, defeated, eager to cooperate in exchange for basic survival. The aliens congratulated themselves on another successful operation and turned their attention to other matters. The galaxy was large, and there were always new primitive species to pacify. They never noticed that every harvester ship that visited Earth carried hidden passengers on the return journey. Human infiltrators, trained by Commander Webb and equipped with Sarah Chun's experimental technology, slowly spread through the hegemony's vast empire. The aliens never suspected that the scattered survivors on Earth were secretly in contact with human colonies that had been established on distant worlds before the invasion, small research stations, and mining operations that have been forgotten in the chaos. Most importantly, the aliens never realized that the strange energy readings their sensors detected around Earth were not random background radiation, but the signature of humanity's greatest project, deep beneath the Himalayan mountains, in a facility carved from solid stone by mining equipment that had been declared destroyed. Human engineers were building something that had never existed before in the galaxy's long history. A HFY weapon that operated on pure chaos. A device that would make reality itself uncertain. Sarah Chun stood in the main laboratory, watching her life's work take shape. Around her, the greatest minds that humanity had ever produced worked together with a single goal. The aliens thought the war was over. Soon, they would learn the difference between surrender and preparation. 15 years had passed since the invasion. To the galaxy, Earth was ancient history, just another footnote in the hegemony's endless expansion. The monitoring reports were always the same. Humans living in simple villages, growing crops, raising children, showing no signs of advanced technology or organized resistance. The Hegemony Council barely remembered the planet existed, but beneath the surface, humanity had been busy. Sarah Chun stood in what had once been called the Deep Lab, a facility buried 3 kilometers under the Tibetan mountains. The main chamber was now larger than a football stadium, carved from solid rock by mining equipment that officially no longer existed. Hundreds of scientists worked at stations connected by fiber optic cables that ran through natural cave systems to similar hidden facilities around the world. Status report, Sarah called out to her team leaders. Quantum uncertainty generators are operating at 97% efficiency, reported Dr. Santos from her station near the main reactor. We can now maintain stable instability for up to 6 hours at a time. Sarah smiled at the contradiction in terms. Stable instability was the heart of everything they had built. Normal physics worked with predictable rules. Energy plus matter equals a specific result. Cause leads to effect. The aliens had perfected technology based on these certainties, but quantum physics was different. At the smallest levels of reality, nothing was certain. Particles could be in 2 places at once. Effects could happen before their causes. Observation could change reality itself. Human scientists had always known about quantum mechanics, but they had never thought to use it as a weapon. The aliens, despite their advanced technology, had never developed quantum science because their telepathic minds naturally imposed order on chaos. They literally could not think in uncertain terms. Paradox weapon systems are ready for field testing, announced Dr. Tanaka from the weapons lab. We've successfully created ammunition that exists and doesn't exist simultaneously until the moment of impact. Commander Webb looked up from his tactical planning station. And our delivery systems? The Chaos Drive is operational, said Dr. Wright. his voice filled with barely controlled excitement. "We can now move ships through space using controlled randomness rather than traditional propulsion. From the outside, it will look like our vessels are simply appearing and disappearing at random." Sarah walked to the center of the chamber, where a massive holographic display showed the current status of Operation Comeback. Red dots marked the positions of human infiltrators throughout the galaxy. Blue lines showed hidden supply routes between surviving human colonies. Green symbols indicated ready, strike forces positioned in forgotten corners of space. The plan had taken 15 years to develop and implement. It required resources from 50 different worlds, coordination between thousands of survivors, and technology that shouldn't have been possible to build. "Blackbird Squadron. Report." Sarah spoke into her communication device. The voice that answered came from somewhere near the galactic core, where Commander Lisa Park led a group of human refugees who had been hiding in an abandoned asteroid field for over a decade. "All units ready, Control. We've been practicing hit-and-run attacks on automated cargo ships. The new quantum torpedoes work perfectly. The alien computers can't track projectiles that exist in probability clouds rather than fixed locations." "Excellent. Phantom Wing, what's your status?" This voice came from the Outer Rim, where Captain Robert Kim commanded a small fleet of ships built entirely from salvaged alien technology and human ingenuity. "Ready to rock and roll, Control. Our reality distortion mines are in position around the main hegemony supply routes. When we activate them, their navigation systems won't be able to tell which way is up." Sarah nodded with satisfaction. The beauty of the Chaos Doctrine was that it turned humanity's greatest weakness into their greatest strength. Humans were unpredictable, illogical, prone to making decisions that defied rational analysis. The aliens considered this a sign of primitive thinking. They were wrong. "Computer, display human tactical analysis versus alien tactical analysis," Sarah commanded. The hologram split into two sections. On the left, alien battle plans appeared. Perfect formations, logical strategies, predictable responses to every possible scenario. On the right were human plans that looked like pure madness. Ships that attacked by deliberately crashing into things. Weapons that fired in random directions. Battle tactics that seemed designed to confuse everyone, including the humans using them. "The aliens fight like chess masters," explained Dr. Santos to a group of new arrivals, recent refugees who had been smuggled out of hegemony labor camps. "Every move calculated, every response planned. But humans fight like humans," finished one of the refugees, a young woman who had lost her family in the invasion, but somehow still smiled. "My grandfather used to say that the best way to win a fight is to make sure your opponent never figures out what kind of fight you're having." Sarah laughed. It was the first time she had laughed in years. "Your grandfather sounds like he would have made a good Chaos Doctrine strategist." The final piece of the puzzle had come from an unexpected source. 3 years earlier, human infiltrators had managed to access a hegemony military database. What they found there changed everything. The aliens have fought exactly 437 different species over the last 1,000,000 years. Dr. Tanaka had reported when the data first came in. And they won every single conflict using the same basic strategy, which is, Sarah had asked, overwhelming technological superiority. They show up with bigger ships, stronger weapons, and better defenses than their enemies. They win through brute force. Sarah had stared at the data for hours. They've never fought anyone who didn't try to match their technology. They've never encountered an enemy that used completely different rules. That was when the real work had begun. Human engineers didn't try to build better energy weapons. They built weapons that convinced alien sensors they didn't exist. Human shipbuilders didn't create stronger armor. They created hulls that existed in quantum superposition. making them impossible to target. Most importantly, human strategists didn't plan logical campaigns. They designed chaos, carefully controlled, precisely targeted chaos that would seem like pure madness to alien minds. "Final systems check," Sarah announced. Around the chamber, hundreds of technicians began the startup sequence for humanity's ultimate weapon. The Earth itself had been transformed. Over 15 years, using mining equipment operated by humans who officially didn't exist. Vast tunnels had been carved through the planet's core. Quantum field generators had been installed along the entire network, turning the whole world into a massive uncertainty engine. "Planetary weapon systems online," reported Dr. Santos. "We can now project a reality distortion field across 3 light years of space. Infiltrator teams confirm alien fleet positions," added Commander Webb. 60% of their major vessels are exactly where we expected them to be." Sarah took a deep breath. In 5 minutes, humanity would either strike the blow that freed the galaxy, or they would provoke the hegemony into finishing what they started 15 years ago. "All units, this is Control." She spoke into her communicator. "Operation Comeback is now active. Remember, we're not trying to destroy them. We're trying to teach them fear." Across the galaxy, human agents received the signal. On distant worlds, refugees who had pretended to be broken slaves suddenly revealed hidden weapons. In asteroid fields and nebulas, human ships that had been invisible for years powered up their chaos drives. On Earth itself, the planetary weapon began to charge. The aliens were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology, their courage, or their determination. It was their ability to change the rules of the game entirely. "Commence Operation Comeback," Sarah ordered. The galaxy was about to become a very different place. The attack began at exactly 0,000 hours Galactic Standard Time, but not in any way the hegemony could have anticipated. Admiral Korath of the Hegemony 4th Fleet was reviewing routine patrol reports when the first impossible thing happened. The monitoring station orbiting Earth simply vanished. Not destroyed, vanished. One moment it was there, transmitting normal data. The next moment, the space where it had been contained nothing but empty vacuum. "Sensor error," muttered Korath's aide. "The primitive humans couldn't possibly." That was when 47 monitoring stations across 12 star systems disappeared simultaneously. "Sir," called the communications officer, her voice tight with panic. "We're receiving emergency signals from the Altair system, the Vega outpost, the Centauri mining operation. They're all reporting the same thing. Human ships attacking from impossible directions." Korath stood slowly. In 300 years of service, he had never heard the words "human ships" and "attacking" in the same sentence. "Display tactical overview." The holographic map that appeared made no sense. Red warning lights blinked across dozens of systems as human vessels launched coordinated attacks. But the ships weren't appearing on sensors until the moment they fired. And they were firing weapons that registered as pure impossibility. "How many ships are we tracking?" Korath demanded. "That's the problem, sir. Our computers can't count them. Every time they try to lock onto a target, the target splits into probability clouds. We're reading everything from 1 ship to 1,000 ships in each location." At the Kepler mining station, Captain Harrison Vega of the human destroyer Defiance was about to demonstrate why the aliens had made a critical error in underestimating human ingenuity. The Defiance had been built in secret over 8 years, using plans that looked like they were drawn by a madman. Half the ship existed in normal space. The other half existed in quantum superposition, meaning it was simultaneously there and not there until observed. "Target acquired," announced his weapons officer. Lieutenant Chun, Sarah's younger cousin, who had inherited the family talent for making impossible things work. Hegemony battlecruiser, bearing 270, distance 4,000 kilometers. Standard targeting approach, Lieutenant. Absolutely not, sir. Initiating chaos protocol. Instead of aiming at the alien ship, Lieutenant Chun aimed at the space the ship might possibly be in during the next 3 minutes. Then she fired a quantum torpedo that existed in 11 different probability states. The alien battlecruiser's defensive computers tried to track the incoming weapon and immediately crashed. Their systems were designed to intercept projectiles that followed predictable paths. They had no protocols for dealing with ammunition that was simultaneously approaching from every direction and no direction. The torpedo hit, and the battlecruiser's shields failed because the computer controlling them could not determine what it was supposed to be protecting against. Direct hit, reported Lieutenant Chun cheerfully. Their entire fleet is dead in the water. Their targeting systems are trying to shoot at ghosts. But Captain Vega wasn't finished. Open a channel to their command ship. Sir, I want to have a conversation. On the bridge of the Hegemony command ship, Admiral Zenth received an incoming transmission from an impossible source. According to his sensors, the signal was coming from empty space. According to his computers, the ship transmitting it both existed and didn't exist. The face that appeared on his screen was young, human, and smiling politely. "Good morning, Admiral," said Captain Vega in perfectly translated Hegemonian. "I'm Captain Harrison Vega of the United Earth ship Defiance. I believe you've been expecting us." "This is impossible," Zenth replied. "Your species was pacified 15 years ago. We got better. Now, I have a question for you. Do you know what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object?" Zenth's tactical display was showing readings that violated physics. Human ships were appearing throughout his formation, but they registered as probability clouds rather than solid matter. His weapons couldn't lock onto them. His shields couldn't determine what to protect against. "This makes no logical sense," he said. "Exactly," agreed Vega. "That's the point. See, your people have been playing chess for 1,000,000 years. You're very good at it. But humans don't play chess. We play Calvin ball. I do not understand this reference. The rules change every time we play, and we're very good at changing rules." Vega's smile became sharper. "Computer, transmit the paradox signal." What happened next? Broke a dozen fundamental laws of physics and several more laws that the hegemony had. Thought were absolute. The Defiance began, broadcasting a mathematical equation that had no solution. It was a logical statement that proved its own impossibility. Any computer that tried to process it would become trapped in an infinite loop, constantly trying to solve something that could not be solved. Every AI system in the hegemony fleet received the signal and immediately began trying to analyze it. Within seconds, their navigation computers crashed. Their weapon systems froze. Their communication networks collapsed as they became gridlocked, trying to process pure paradox. "What have you done?" Zenth whispered. "We've taught your machines to think like humans," Vega replied. "Unfortunately, they're not very good at it." Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. At the Rigel shipyards, human infiltrators revealed weapons that fired backwards through time, destroying ships before they detected the attack. In the Procyon system, mining facilities found themselves under assault by human vessels that attacked by deliberately crashing into things, except the crashes caused the alien ships to phase out of normal space instead of exploding. But the true masterpiece was happening at Earth itself. Sarah Chun stood in the deep lab, watching her life's work reach completion. The planetary quantum cannon was fully charged, its field generators creating a reality distortion that extended beyond Earth's atmosphere. All human forces have cleared the target zone, reported Commander Webb. Alien command networks are operating normally, added Dr. Santos. They have no idea what we're about to do. Sarah placed her hand on the firing control. For 15 years, every human survivor had worked toward this moment. The chance to strike back at the aliens who had tried to destroy them. But this wasn't about revenge. This was about teaching the galaxy a new kind of fear. Fire, Sarah commanded. The Earth fired a single shot across the galaxy. Not at any target, but at the quantum foundations of the hegemony's communication network itself. The beam moved faster than light, carried by controlled chaos rather than normal physics. When it reached its destination, a massive relay station at the galactic core that coordinated communications for 1,000,000 worlds. Something unprecedented happened. The station didn't explode. It didn't disappear. Instead, it became uncertain. The quantum field generated by Earth's weapon convinced reality that the station both existed and didn't exist simultaneously. The effect cascaded through the entire hegemony communication network. Every relay, every transmitter, every quantum-entangled communication device in their empire suddenly became trapped in the same state of uncertainty. In one moment, a civilization that had dominated the galaxy for 1,000,000 years went silent on the bridge of his crippled flagship. Admiral Zenth watched his entire worldview collapse. His ships couldn't move because their navigation computers were trapped in logical paradoxes. His weapons couldn't fire because their targeting systems couldn't process quantum uncertainty. His communications were down because the network itself was caught in a state of impossible existence. How? He asked Captain Vega, whose face was still smiling at him from the main screen. Simple, Vega replied. You've been thinking in straight lines for so long you forgot that the universe is fundamentally random. We just reminded it. Across the galaxy, hegemony forces found themselves helpless against enemies that refused to follow the rules of engagement. Human ships appeared and disappeared without warning. Human weapons hit targets that the aliens' best computers said were impossible to hit. Human tactics made no logical sense and were therefore completely impossible to counter. Most terrifying of all, the humans weren't trying to destroy the hegemony fleets. They were systematically disabling them, capturing them, or simply ignoring them while they destroyed military infrastructure with weapons that shouldn't have been able to exist. This is Admiral Korath to all hegemony forces. Came a desperate transmission on one of the few remaining communication channels. Fall back to home systems immediately. Repeat, full retreat. But as hegemony ships tried to flee, they discovered that human forces had been waiting for them at their escape routes. Not to destroy them, but to deliver a final message. It was Captain Vega's voice, broadcast simultaneously across every surviving hegemony communication system. You were warned. 15 years ago, we offered to talk. You chose destruction instead. Now you know what human revenge looks like. We suggest you remember this lesson. The galaxy fell silent. For the first time in 1,000,000 years, no empire's voice echoed between the stars. The age of the hegemony was over. The age of chaos had begun. 3 years after the hegemony's defeat, the galaxy had become a very quiet place. Ambassador Kellen of the Alterian Republic sat in his office on the neutral world of Haven, staring at reports that made no sense. His people had been slaves of the hegemony for 800 years. When the humans shattered their oppressors, the Alterians expected to face new masters. Instead, they found something far more unsettling: freedom. Sir, said his aide, entering with the daily intelligence summary. Still no sign of human occupation forces on any former hegemony world. Kellen frowned. What about their demands for tribute? Territorial claims? Surely they want something from the systems they liberated. That's just it, sir. They don't seem to want anything. The human ships patrol our space lanes, but they don't land. They protect our convoys from pirates, but they don't ask for payment. It's strange. Strange was a good word for it. In the 3 years since humanity's impossible victory, not a single human had set foot on an alien world as a conqueror. They had military bases, certainly hidden facilities that appeared to be carved into asteroids or tucked away in the shadows of dead moons. But they didn't build cities, establish governments, or demand that other species serve them. They just watched. Captain Zara of the Vegan Trade Consortium knew this better than most. Her cargo ship had been attacked by pirates 6 times in the past 2 years. Each time, human vessels had appeared from nowhere to drive off the attackers. The humans never asked for thanks, never demanded payment, and never explained where they came from or where they went. It's like having guardian angels, her co-pilot had said after the most recent rescue. Except guardian angels that could probably crack a planet in half if they wanted to. The pirates certainly believed it. Word had spread through the criminal underworld about what happened to anyone who preyed on civilian shipping. Human warships would appear without warning, disable the pirate vessels with impossible weapons, and then do something worse than destroying them. They would leave them alive to tell others what they had seen. "Boss," whispered Rakik the Bloodthirsty, a name that had seemed much more impressive. The 4 humans entered the picture to his lieutenant. "Maybe we should go into a different line of work." Rakik's pirate fleet had once terrorized 3 star systems. Now they sat in a hidden asteroid base, afraid to venture out. Not because the humans hunted them, but because they made no effort to hunt them at all. "They don't chase us," Rakik continued. "They don't threaten us. They just appear when we attack someone. And their weapons." His lieutenant nodded grimly. They had all heard the stories. Human weapons that convinced pirate ships they were somewhere else entirely. Human tactics that turned raiders' own equipment against them. Human technology that seemed to operate on pure, spite and impossible mathematics. But worst of all were the messages the humans left behind. Not warnings or threats, but simple statements of fact written in every known language. You were seen. You were judged. You were allowed to live. Choose better. The psychological effect was devastating. Pirates who had terrorized the galaxy for decades found themselves looking over their shoulders constantly, wondering if today would be the day the Chaos Bringers decided they had gone too far. On Earth itself, Sarah Chun stood in what had once been her laboratory and was now something unprecedented, a planetary command center for an empire that didn't want to rule anything. "Status report," she said to the assembled team leaders. "All monitoring stations are operational," reported Dr. Santos. "We're tracking approximately 96% of interstellar traffic across our patrol zones. Any signs of organized aggression?" "Pirates are down by 78%, said Commander Webb. "Most of them have switched to legitimate trading or simply disappeared. The few remaining groups are careful to avoid civilian targets." "What about the former hegemony worlds?" Dr. Tanaka consulted her tablet. "Surprisingly stable. Without central authority telling them what to do, most species have formed local governments. There's been some conflict, but nothing on the scale of the old empire's oppression." Sarah nodded with satisfaction. This was what they had hoped for. Not conquest, but the absence of conquest. For the first time in galactic history, no single power dominated the stars. Species were free to find their own paths, but humanity remained vigilant. "Any contact from the hegemony remnants?" Sarah asked. 3 attempts, Webb replied. all requesting negotiation. We've ignored them. The surviving hegemony forces had retreated to a small cluster of worlds near their original home system. They had the ships and weapons to threaten their neighbors, but they no longer had the will to use them. Every sensor reading, every intelligence report, every fragment of data they could gather suggested that human forces had grown stronger, not weaker, since their victory. Human ships now appeared to be built from pure impossibility. Human bases existed in locations that their best scientists claimed couldn't support matter. Human weapons had evolved beyond paradox into something that could only be described as weaponized chaos theory. "Sir," Admiral Korath's aide said quietly, "the Science Council believes the humans may have learned to manipulate reality itself." Korath, who had once commanded fleets that conquered star systems, now sat in a small office trying to understand how his entire civilization had been humbled by a species they had considered barely more advanced than animals. "What does the Council recommend?" "They suggest we avoid any action that might be interpreted as aggressive." The humans appear to be content with maintaining their watching presence. "We should be grateful they allow us to exist at all." Grateful. The word tasted bitter in Korath's mouth. The mighty hegemony, reduced to feeling grateful that their former victims permitted them to live, but he had seen the reports from their few remaining scout ships. Human vessels now patrolled the spaces between stars like sharks in an endless ocean. They didn't threaten anyone directly, but their presence was felt everywhere. Trade routes that had been plagued by raiders for centuries were now safe. Planets that had paid tribute to a dozen different overlords found themselves free to govern themselves. Species that had been enslaved for millennia discovered that their former masters were too afraid of human retaliation to attempt reconquest. Humans had done something that no conqueror in galactic history had ever accomplished. They had brought peace through terror rather than oppression. On the neutral world of Haven, Ambassador Kellen received a message that changed everything. It came through channels his people thought were secure, encoded in ways that should have been unbreakable. The text was simple. "We know what you're planning. We know about the secret alliance. We know about the weapon shipments. We know about the plan to test human defenses. This is your only warning. Choose better." Kellen stared at the message in horror. The alliance was the deepest secret his government possessed, a coalition of 23 systems planning to unite against the human threat. They had been careful, subtle, using coded communications and hidden meetings. Somehow, the humans knew everything. Within hours, similar messages had been delivered to every government involved in the alliance. Not threats of destruction or demands for surrender, but simple statements that the humans were aware and watching. The alliance dissolved before sunset. Dr. Elizabeth Foster, a Zen archaeologist working on the former hegemony world of Kethvar, made a discovery that would terrify the galaxy even more than human weapons had, while excavating a research facility that had abandoned during the chaos of the human victory. She found hidden archives containing the hegemony's deepest secrets. Information about conquered civilizations, records of atrocities committed across the galaxy, and detailed files on every species that had ever been enslaved or destroyed. What made the discovery significant wasn't what the archives contained, but what she found written in the margins of every document. Notes in human handwriting, comments in human languages, corrections to historical records that only someone with access to multiple perspectives could have made. The humans had been through these archives already. They had read everything. They knew every crime the hegemony had committed, every species that had been wronged, every injustice that needed to be balanced, and they were keeping score. Sarah Chen received Dr. Foster's report in her office, deep beneath the Himalayan mountains. Around her, the greatest database in galactic history hummed quietly, a quantum storage system that contained detailed records of every sentient species. Every historical injustice, every debt that needed to be repaid. How many? She asked Dr. Santos, who was managing the justice protocols. 437 species wronged by the hegemony. 16,743 documented atrocities. 9,400,000,000 individual victims whose deaths can be directly attributed to hegemony actions. Sarah nodded slowly. And our response? Phase 7 of the Silent Protocol is now active. Memory seeds have been planted in the quantum matrices of every former hegemony world. If their governments ever attempt organized aggression again, every citizen will simultaneously remember every atrocity their ancestors committed. It was perhaps the most terrifying weapon humanity had ever created. Forced empathy on a planetary scale.